What's the most romantic thing someone has ever done for you? Been married 35 years this year. I had a spinal cord injury just over 20 years ago. It slowed me down somewhat and limited my movement. Husband is just so supportive, re the house, cooking, helping me. He still gives me regular pedicures, etc. I couldn't have a more supportive husband and friend. We don't celebrate Valentine's Day because if you show someone you love them every day, having just one day set aside each year for it seems weird.
That's a solid story. It's nice to see that kind of support in a long marriage. Dealing with an injury and still having someone by your side doing all that must mean a lot. Skipping Valentine's Day is cool too. It's about what you do every day rather than a single day. It's good to hear people highlight that kind of love.
He only knew me for a few weeks at the time. My only card got compromised, so I canceled it and requested a replacement. He put his debit card in my digital wallet because the cafe downstairs from work doesn't accept cash, and I didn't bring lunch. My replacement debit card took 2 weeks to arrive, and I was using his debit card for the entire time to pay for petrol and groceries. I paid him back for what I spent, but it was a nice gesture.
That's a solid story about trust. It's cool how he stepped up when you needed help, even though you hadn't known each other long. It's those kind of moments that really show what friendship can be like. Using someone's debit card is a big deal, but your willingness to pay him back showed you appreciated the gesture. Small things can really make a difference in building a bond.
I know this is so stupid and mundane, but my husband, BF at time, went into a gas station to get a snack and some chapstick. He loves cherry chapstick, but I absolutely hate, so I thought to myself, gross, I'm gonna have to use cherry. And he came back out and I grabbed it to use it and it was strawberry. I honestly looked at him confused and he just said, "You hate cherry." And I know it's so small, but the feeling of someone knowing you so intimately with such small details is so romantic. I don't even remember mentioning to him that I hated cherry, so it must have been in passing, but it's the fact that he listened and thought of it in that moment. He also regularly runs me baths with Epsom salt and candles and sets out my book for me. That's pretty romantic too.
It's nice how little things can show someone really cares. Like that chapstick moment, it's not a big deal, but it means a lot. It's the kind of detail that sticks with you. And the baths with Epsom salt sound like a sweet touch too. Those small gestures add up and make the relationship feel special. Sometimes it's the simple stuff that really matters.
We hadn't been seeing each other long, but he borrowed my phone while I was doing something for a bit. Handed it back to me with no real explanation. Turns out he entered calendar entries to go off at random times to send me messages, things like how beautiful I am, reminding me to eat, etc. We were young, and texting had a cap back then for the plan he had, and online messaging apps weren't that big of a thing then. So this was his way to make sure he was still taking care of me despite his limited budget.
It's cool how some gestures stick with you. I had a friend who did something similar once. He would leave little notes for me, just reminders to take care of myself. It felt simple but meant a lot. Just shows how thoughtful people can be, even when they don't have much to give. It's nice to have those little reminders that someone cares, especially when you're young and figuring things out.
My most recent pregnancy loss was really hard on me, and I was fully in the darkness wallowing. My partner, who struggles with emotion, his own and others, was doing everything to get me back to normal. The day following the loss, an Amazon package arrives, and in it, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I love this man, and maybe someone else would see the gift differently, but I belly laughed. It hurt LOL. He's not diagnosed, but his autistic gift broke the sadness seal, and subsequently reading that book helped me climb out of the pit of sadness. It was romantic because I think that gift may have actually saved me, and was genuinely heartfelt. I see you're having a lot of feelings at the moment. Here's a book to stop that rolling on the floor laughing.
That's a tough situation. I get how the unexpected humor in that moment can help lighten the mood. It's nice to hear that the book ended up being a way for you to find some peace. Sometimes, the simplest gestures can have a big impact, even if they don't always land the way we expect. It's cool that you found some laughter in a really dark time.
It's a classic 1980s high school hold the boombox over your head moment. After I broke up with him, he made me a mixtape with all the most beautiful love songs like Peter Gabriel's In Your Eyes, Led Zeppelin, All of My Love, Rob Stewart, You're in My Heart, ECT, and then hand-wrote all of the lyrics to all of the words to all of the songs on the mixtape and taped it to the inside of my locker. No computers, all by hand, and anybody who knows what it takes to make a mixtape. Back in the day, this was love.
That's a solid throwback moment. Mixtapes really hit differently back then. Putting in the effort to handwrite all the lyrics shows how much he cared. Lots of kids today wouldn't even understand the grind it took to make one. It had that personal touch, you know? Just a simple but meaningful way to express feelings. Definitely a unique way to remember a relationship.
Echoing along with everyone else, my partner has shown me for the first time that it's not about a huge gift or a large display of affection. It's the way he wakes up before work with me 3 hours before he even needs to, just to help me start my morning with some support and love. He takes such good care of my autoimmune condition, makes my coffee, and has everything ready for me when I get home from work. It's truly the smallest things adding up over days and weeks and months that become the most romantic.
It's cool how the little things really matter. It's not always about grand gestures. Your partner sounds like someone who gets that. Waking up early just to support you shows a lot. Those everyday actions, like making coffee and being there when you get home, really add up. It's nice to realize that those small moments of care create a strong bond. Love can be simple but really meaningful in those ways.
Jumped on a plane with me the day after my granddad died. Came to the funeral, sat by me the whole time, sorted my clothes, etc., etc. First time meeting my family. She was the only brown person out of, I'd say, 150 to 175 people. Didn't mention it once. Real support is romantic. Damn, I wish I didn't fuck that up, lol.
It's tough losing someone, and having a friend show up like that really means a lot. Sharing the experience with her must have been a comfort, especially since it was such a big family gathering. The fact that she was there for you without making it awkward speaks volumes. It's easy to look back and think about what went wrong, but it sounds like she genuinely cared.
When I lived in Mexico, I dated this man from there, and we traveled within the country together. We said our forever goodbyes because I was moving back home. When we finished our exploring, and then I flew to Cancun to meet up with parents for the next day. While waiting for my parents' plane to arrive, I was rifling through my purse to find my phone when I found his watch instead. I found my phone and immediately texted him, saying that he left his watch with me, and he texted back saying that he did that purposely because it's set to the exact hour, exact minute, exact second that he last saw me. He literally stopped time for me.
That's a pretty memorable story. It's interesting how certain moments and gifts can carry so much meaning. Finding that watch must have hit hard, especially with the timing of it all. It sounds like he wanted to have a piece of that experience with you, even as you moved on. Just the idea of stopping time in a way makes it all feel a bit more significant. Moments like these really stick with you.
If you've ever had your husband attend a birthing class with you and actually participate and actually listen, learn, and practice soothing you during contractions, goddamn, move over Gomez Adams. I have never felt so loved in my life. We have been married for almost 9 years. Because of his actions, his loving support, and his tender behavior towards me during that class. And every day, quite frankly, I am unafraid of giving birth knowing he is by my side. Good God. Fan self. 2 hearts.
It's cool to hear how supportive your husband is. Attending a birthing class and really engaging says a lot about him. It must feel nice knowing he has your back, especially during such a big moment. Feeling loved and supported can really make a difference in experiences like that. Sounds like you both have a good bond going into this.
My boyfriend does so many romantic things for me, and I remember one time when I got sick and just told him about it. In 15 minutes, he was already at my place with a full package of medicine and was explaining how to take them. I also remember how he gathered tulips by hand and made a beautiful bouquet for me. And he took me to Spain because I had never been abroad, and it was unforgettable.
It's nice when someone goes out of their way for you. I had a friend who once showed up with soup when I was feeling down. It was simple, but it meant a lot. Another time, we took a weekend trip to the beach. The moments spent just hanging out, no plans in mind, really made it special. Sometimes, it's those little gestures that leave the biggest impact.
My late partner and I had just moved into our first apartment together. He was a musician, and I was stressed from packing, unpacking, organizing, etc. And in my rushing around, I jetted past him, and he grabbed me and started low dancing with me while singing Chris Stapleton's Millionaire. Nothing else mattered. He passed away 2 years ago, and that is still one of my favorite memories of him.
That's a nice memory. Those moments can really stick with you. It's interesting how something simple like a dance can wash away stress. Music has a way of connecting people, even in tough times. It sounds like he knew how to lift your spirits when you needed it the most. It's good to hold on to those memories. They keep the person alive in a way.
When we first started dating, he baked me a whole box of the nicest cookies Eve ever had. In more recent years, he has always listened to my problems and talked them through regardless of how many times I brought them up. Also, he has supported me to become a better version of myself. For example, I told him Eve never felt confident with maths, and since then he sat with me to show me various basic math skills, got me maths books and workbooks for Christmas, never forced me to try until I was ready, and most importantly, never made me feel stupid for not knowing things. Just a small part of why I love him, but every day I feel so lucky to be loved so deeply by him.
That's a nice story. It shows that he's really supportive. Baking cookies is a sweet touch, and it's cool that he takes the time to help you with maths. It's important to have someone who listens and respects your pace. It's not just about love, it's about growth together. Sounds like you've got a solid partner who really cares.
My hubby is so romantic. We've been together a long time, nearly 27 years. When we were younger, mid-20s, I woke up one morning and started getting ready for work when he told me that he'd called in and booked it off for me. He had also rang my instructor to cancel my driving lesson, packed a suitcase for me, and booked a hotel and train tickets for a mini breakaway. I was speechless. A few years and 2 kids later, I was about to get ready for work again, another job. I had switched to evening work to fit around caring for our family. He smiled that same smile. He'd rang work for me and arranged the evening off. He'd arranged childcare for our kids, and he'd booked us a table at a restaurant. Then last year, I woke up with a start. He'd overslept for work. I woke him up telling him the time, and he once again smiled that smile. He'd booked the day off as a surprise. The kids went to school, and we went out for the day to a nearby town and had a boat ride down the river, went for lunch, just enjoyed each other's company.
That's nice. It's cool how he surprises you like that. Taking time off work, planning things, and caring for the kids while still making time for you. It shows he values your relationship. Those little moments add up, especially with the routine of daily life. Seems like you both have a good connection, sharing experiences and making memories together. It's the simple things that really count.
Once, a partner handwrote me a list of all my quirky habits they found adorable, and each item came with a small doodle. Each time I couldn't find my keys or made a goofy face while eating, I'd look at that list and know my perfectly imperfect self was a masterpiece to someone. That's romance. Laying bare the intricacies of love in ordinary moments.
That's a nice take on romance. It's cool how little things, like quirks, can show affection. It's a reminder that being ourselves, with all our oddities, is what makes those connections special. Moments like these highlight the everyday aspects of love, turning them into something meaningful. It's the simple gestures that often stick with us the most.
This was like a decade ago. At the time, my incredibly blonde girlfriend/now wife and we were dating for like 3 months so far, and she went above and beyond to surprise me with a rSlash cake that she made from scratch for my birthday. I'm Latino for context, and rSlash cake is our shit LOL. I was touched that she threw such lengths to make something she never tried making before, nor ever had herself. That cake she made was so delicious because not only did she give it her absolute best effort, but she made it out of love. I asked her about it some time later, like how did she remember that I loved rSlash? And she told me that long before we started dating, and we were only close friends, I had mentioned rSlash, and she filed that in her ever-growing mental list of me LOL.
That's a nice story. It's cool how she remembered something you mentioned in passing. It shows she pays attention to the little things. The fact that she tackled making a rSlash cake, especially without having tried it before, just makes it sweeter. It's a simple yet meaningful gesture. You can tell it came from a good place. It must have meant a lot to you at that time.
It was a very cold winter night, after 10 p.m. My then partner and I went for a walk to McDonald's because I love their ice cream. On our way back which surprise, fleecing ate. Cuddling didn't help, and he already had given me his jacket. So to distract me from the cold, he jumped on that small dam beside the river we walked along, and he started singing, like really loud and really terrible. A German love song filled the air, and I swear I heard a cat answer his singing from somewhere inside the dark, snowy bushes. It was the absolute epitome of cringe, but it made me tear up, and the cold didn't bother me that night anymore.
That sounds like a pretty unique moment. It's interesting how something simple, like bad singing in the cold, can create a lasting memory. You were probably just trying to stay warm, but then the laughter and cringy vibes turned it into something special. Sometimes the awkward times with people we care about stick with us more than anything else. It's those little moments that count.
My ex made me this really cool custom hoodie. It's got all sorts of stuff on it, like it shows our first date and how we met and everything. He also made me his own chili sauce because he knows I'm obsessed with spicy food. And he made me flowers too. A whole bouquet of roses, but out of paper. And he even made a sunflower. He used to print out letters for me too. The funny thing is he'd always stick an Angry Bird logo on them because he called me Angry Bird.
That's a nice memory. It's interesting how creativity can show affection in unique ways. The hoodie sounds like a thoughtful keepsake, and the chili sauce shows he really got your taste. Paper flowers are a cool touch too. It's funny how little nicknames can stick, like Angry Bird. Those kind of personal gestures really make moments special, even after everything.
I have always loved my husband so deeply, and we have 3 beautiful kids together, but I, 36F, had to have my tonsils out last year. The recovery was brutal, and I ended up having a lot of bleeding and complications which resulted in a second surgery. My husband waited on me hand and foot and took care of our 3 kids during it all. One day while laying in bed, I just had this overwhelming feeling of an even deeper love for my husband wash over me. You really don't know true love until you are at your lowest physically or mentally and your significant other serves you by taking care of all your needs. I saw him so differently after that. He brought me meals and made sure to wake me up every 4 hours for pain meds, etc. I will never forget the kindness and love I felt from that.
It's interesting how tough times can change our perspective. Going through a tough recovery like that, you really get to see what people are made of. It's clear that your husband stepped up and showed how much he truly cares. Moments like these reveal a deeper bond. In the end, it's those experiences that really strengthen a relationship. Seeing love in action during hardship is pretty powerful.
Me and my boyfriend are both students who work part-time. Just saying so you know we are not super rich, haha. And on my birthday, he told me to meet him at the airport in the morning, and he took me for a weekend to Rome Red Heart. I had literally no idea where we will go, but it was one of my biggest dreams, and this whole trip was just like a movie.
That sounds pretty cool. Surprising someone with a trip to a dream destination is a nice gesture. Rome has a lot to offer, and it must have felt amazing to experience it together. The spontaneity of it all can really make for great memories. It's nice when someone knows what you want, especially when you're both busy with school and work.
I had emergency abdominal surgery a few months ago and had to spend a few days in the hospital. Every evening, my husband would take me on a slow walk around the hospital floor to get me up and moving, and he would call them dates and play my favorite music for me. During a scary and traumatic time, that made me smile.
That sounds tough, but it's nice to hear your husband helped you through it. Those walks must have been a good distraction. Just having music and him there probably made a big difference. It's cool how little things like that can help during hard times.
The most romantic thing someone ever did for me was stay up all night crafting a playlist of songs that told the story of our relationship. Each track was like a timestamp of who we were. The funny moments, heartache, and soothing lullabies for restless nights. When I listened, I could feel our journey play out all over again, each note stitching us closer together, proving that love isn't just a feeling, it's a shared soundtrack.
That sounds pretty thoughtful. It's interesting how music can capture memories and emotions like that. A playlist really is a unique way to tell a story. It must have felt special to hear those moments play out through each song. It's a simple but deep way to show affection.
My girlfriend of about 5 months and I were spending Christmas together. She said she felt bad about not getting me a present. I told her it was fine, but before I could finish, she took off one of the crystal earrings she wears all the time and clipped it into my right ear, and said this way a piece of her will always be close to me. I've been given jewelry before, but this feels different, especially considering that she wears those earrings everywhere, and they probably have some sentimental value to her. It just gave me butterflies. I love her SM, and I'm gonna go all out for Valentine's this year.
That's a nice story. It sounds like a meaningful moment. It's cool when gifts are about emotions rather than just material things. The earring is a nice touch, especially since it has significance for her. It's great that you're planning something special for Valentine's too. That shows you care and want to make her feel appreciated. It's the little things that often mean the most.
Totally random. When my husband and I were dating, we'd gone shoe shopping. I found a pair I liked, grabbed them, and sat down to take my shoes off. He so casually sat down in front of me and grabbed my foot and took off my shoes for me, stinky sweaty shoes and all in his face, and got the new pair and put them on me. I sat there dumbfounded. Like, WTF, did he just do that for? It was so random and small, but also one of the most romantic and kind gestures I'd ever experienced.
That's a pretty cool moment. It's funny how some small, random acts can stick with you. Just a simple gesture, but it shows how much he cared. It's those little things that often mean the most in a relationship. I guess it's nice to know someone is willing to go that extra mile, even for something like shoes. Moments like that can be unexpectedly memorable.
Well, off the top of my head, and if this counts, there was a boy only a year older than me. We talked for a while, and when I got bored, I said, "Run, or I'll hold your hand." Normally, that is guys halfway down the street before I'm finished talking. The boy said, "I wouldn't mind." I didn't know at the time, but he had a crush on me. I was so touched, and we held hands. I was obsessed with that event for a week. It was too sweet.
That's a nice memory. It's interesting how small moments can stick with you. Holding hands feels simple but can mean a lot. It's cool he was comfortable enough to respond that way. It shows he liked you. It's funny how something so casual can leave a strong impression. A week of thinking about it makes it even more special, I guess. Sometimes those sweet moments are what we remember most.
Traditional romance? My boyfriend gives me thoughtful gifts and extra consideration. Anytime I feel spoiled and taken care of, as a very independent woman, is romantic. All of my partners have offered romance. A former partner decorated a fancy hotel room, W/candles, and a rose petal pentagram, which was pretty traditionally romantic. I'm a romantic person. People recognizing that and trying to meet me halfway because they know I like IS romantic. Like, I don't care about candles and flowers, but my GF does, so I'll make the effort.
It's nice when partners try to meet your needs. Shows they care and want to make you happy. I remember a friend who planned a simple picnic because her partner knew she loved the outdoors. They didn't go all out, but the effort meant a lot. It's those little things that really matter. Being seen and understood is what romance is all about, like finding that balance together.
My boyfriend bought me a Kindle because he knows how much I love to read, but couldn't afford physical books while studying abroad. English books are ridiculously expensive here. It was one of the sweetest, most romantic gestures I've ever received. He nurtured my love for reading, knowing how miserable I felt trying to read on my phone because I couldn't afford books.
That's a nice gesture. Kindles are pretty handy, especially when you're in a place with pricey books. It's cool that he pays attention to what you enjoy. Reading can be a great escape, so having the right tool makes a difference. It's always good to have supportive people around when you're juggling studies and life. Sounds like he really gets you.
Not did, but said. We were talking with our adult daughter, and I mentioned about how our friendship started, and he said, "But that's not right. We first met about 3 months before that." He could see I was confused, so he went on to describe that evening. I couldn't remember it at all, and told him so, and he laughed and said, "But I've never forgotten it, because I loved you from that moment." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why he's a keeper 30 years down the line.
It's funny how memories work. A simple conversation can bring up details you didn't even know mattered. It's cool to hear how he cherished that first meeting, even if you were clueless about it. Shows a lot about his feelings. It's nice to know that those little moments can stick with someone for so long. Seems like a solid foundation for a long relationship.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.